Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
Hello, I'm Jake Carter with Felix and Fingers. I am here with Josh DeSilva. We are both in Maui, and he has been part of the DMC community for 34 years. You got your start while attending the University of San Diego, a bachelor's degree in communications and ocean studies, and you founded DeSilva Meeting Consultants in 2003. You've been a part of a bunch of different programs and communities in terms of the DMC thing all over the world, like we were just talking about before we joined here. And you do a bunch of really cool meetings and events. So do you want to talk about that? You ready?
Yeah, sure. We do. Thank you for having me, Jake. The DMC industry here in Hawaii is really strong. It's a very seasoned destination, I would say. The hotels that we partner with tend to be the higher end outer island type resort hotels that reward their top performers. Typically working with Fortune 1000 type companies, but we don't put any rules on that. But Hawaii is a wonderful place to send your people. And for me personally, having grown up in Hawaii, I found a way to express and share my passion and love and knowledge of the islands with people coming from literally all over the world. We'll do programs for, like I said, these large international, many of them international corporations. And we've had events with people from 26 different countries, for example. So, it's a great opportunity to share the very best of Hawaii with the top producing performers of some of the biggest companies in the world. So it's been an honor and a pleasure and a long run at 34 years. It's almost embarrassing. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. And you were mentioning that part of your history is working with your dad owned a studio, right?
Yeah. My parents moved out here in the late 60s before I was born, so I've had the privilege of growing up here in the islands. And one of the things that kind of brought me into the entertainment side of what I do nowadays is my stepdad owning a recording studio here. And he ran a company called Melody Line Productions for over 38 years. I think it might have stretched right into the 40-year zone, and worked with a lot of top name people here in the islands or entertainers that would come here to relax and be inspired, and they'd come up to the studio and record things that maybe they end up taking back to the mainland to finalize. But it was really fun growing up as a kid, watching people. We had the studio at our house here on Maui, and I'd see some of the most well-known entertainers in the state walking by my bedroom and waving and saying hi. And I felt like one of the things that it taught me is no matter how famous you are, that people are still people, and their public persona and their private are very different. And a lot of these people are just, wonderful, giving, talented humans. And it really inspired me to appreciate music myself, which I play a little bit, and just to give the very best options to our customers. When they come in, I feel like I have a pretty discerning ear and eye as to what's going to work for the clients based on their feedback and their budget and all of that stuff. But gave me a really good foundation when I got into the events world, having kind of lived and breathed that growing up.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So with all of the different things that you've seen in all the 34 years that you've been doing this, what are the current trends in weddings and events? Well, I guess you don't do weddings, but events that
Right.
you're hosting. What are the current things that you're seeing that people are doing?
Well, it is interesting that you said weddings, so might be a good segue to say that I am a founding board member of a very new organization. We haven't even sent out a membership drive yet, called the Maui Wedding and Events Association. So although I don't do weddings, I'm rubbing shoulders with the wedding industry consistently. And in a lot of ways, we do the same thing. It's just for a different clientele, right?
Yeah.
We're still doing the catering and the hiring of the bands and the florals and the linens and the chairs and the tents and the transportation. So it's all right there. And we're like cousins to our wedding planner friends. Um, but yeah, some of the more interesting trends that I've seen lately, and this was really happening even before the tragic fires in Lahaina and Kula, was really a push for these corporations to give back when they come to destinations. And subsequently the fires kind of expanded that energy even more, and the HTA, which is the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and the HVCB, Hawaii Visitor and Convention Bureau, we're already on a new path to really encourage the mindful traveler, and that translates not just to families and individuals that are coming to Hawaii, but definitely that message is also getting to the corporate world. So I would say what we call the CSR, or the corporate social responsibility, has really taken on new meaning in the last couple of years. And people, studies have already been done that when people give back to a destination, they leave with a richer experience. And so it's really a win across the board. It's kind of an indisputable thing where the people feel good about it, the community's better for it, responsible tourism. So there's a lot of fun ways to give back, and it doesn't have to be that picture of the people in knee-deep mud sweating out in KNI, pulling weeds out of the taro patch. That's there, and that's fun too. But there's a lot of ways to give back that you can even do things at the hotel, for example, where we've worked with some local nonprofit organizations a number of times this year, where they'll come in and you have to manually pull the seeds out of the native plants in order to propagate them. And so we'll get 100, 200, 300 or more people together, and they spend an hour, and you can get all of these native seeds out of their pods, and then they're taken up into the forest where they're planted mindfully to reestablish the native forest, which also has the added effect of being more fire suppressant, right? So it all ties into kind of what happened in Lahaina, and it's a great way. We've had people sitting there listening to Hawaiian music, drinking mimosas, and learning about native plants. And really, it's not just a feel-good moment. They're actually moving the ball forward on reforestation, but without taking an hour drive and you could, up into remote areas where you can't take 200 or 300 people. So they're still giving back. And, that's one of my favorites. So I tend to ramble a little bit, but that's just a perfect example of how these companies are coming out here. But it's just to kind of flow into that. It doesn't have to be environmental. Some of the things we're doing are human related, or supporting women helping women, or the Boys and Girls Club. There's environmentalism. So there's a lot of ways that people can give back, even as simply as we've done some team building events where people will come together and they'll have different stations of Hawaiian games that they participate in, and they're learning about the Hawaiian culture and ulu maika, or spear throwing. But one of the stations is a dry food construction. So they have to build something with the theme, and they get judged on it. They're building it out of cans and dried goods. And then at the end of the event, all that's put on pallets and taken to the Maui Food Bank and donated. So, there's fun ways to give back, again, without getting your fingernails dirty. We've done centerpieces that are made out of tropical foods and that are edibles. So at the end of the event, those are given, again, to maybe the Kauai Food Bank or the Maui Food Bank. So lots of fun ways. I could keep going, but that is a definite trend over the last few years, to answer your question.
It's really cool. That is really, really interesting. And it's great that that's something that you do. And I definitely see how your experience and over time being so rooted in Hawaii and aloha and all of that, it just makes sense,
Yeah.
and that's great that that's something that people are doing. I actually haven't really heard about that. So that's such a cool thing.
Great.
And don't worry about rambling, because this is the whole point of this podcast, just people listening and being like, oh my gosh, what a great thing that we should do. And I'm sure if I haven't heard about it and I live here, there's probably a lot of people that don't live here that are now
I would
thinking,
say
I wonder if I could build a floral arrangement with Spam cans.
we actually have done that. Yeah,
I'm
it's kind of
sure you
cute. We have a couple of sunflowers poking out of the empty can. We've seen that before. It's pretty cute and playful. I would say another trend over the last few years, and of course, just speaking through my lens of being here in Hawaii, and that is really putting an emphasis on authenticity with the way we're projecting the native culture and sharing the native culture. I think gone are the days of the the CEO coming in a big kahuna costume with the fake coconut bras and kind of in a way unintentionally, but kind of mocking the native culture. I think those days are long gone, and we're trying to educate meeting planners when they come in a very polite way that, we want, and they're very welcoming. I will say there's not a lot of pushback on it, but if somebody wants to do something that's too kitschy, we'll try to just, subtly redirect them into something that is maybe more authentic and meaningful, and being true to the Hawaiian culture as best we can. So I'd say that's another trend for sure.
Awesome. So with the idea of trends and things that people you really like and that you're seeing that are going well, what are some things and events that I mean, this flows right into you saying like seeing people do kitschy things and dressing as a big kahuna. What are some things that you're like, absolutely no, like just don't do that. Please don't do that. Like what, something like that.
Yeah, well, it kind of flows with that earlier comment about just mindful tourism and as a state, we want to put the message out that coming here and being respectful, firstly maybe to the Hawaiian culture, I would say, but even aside from that, just being respectful of private property and trespassing and common sense on the roadways and things like that. So from a corporate standpoint, there are some things that we can share with our clients and our meeting planner clients, and then whether they get that trickled down to their attendees or not is kind of on their shoulders. But just coming here with that mindfulness, with that respect. We don't honk at people here. Some of it is going to sound a little obvious, but we're not littering. We're trying to leave the place a little better than we found it, which is something we all learned as kids when we went camping. This is nothing new, but it's definitely being pushed by the state. And with that said, and rightfully so, but with that said, we know we can't control everybody, but we're not trying to make this a spring break destination. Come here, get as wasted as you can, yell and scream, jump off of things, go beyond the borders of the state parks and do what you want to get that killer Instagram photo. Like, those people are still going to come, but if the messaging from our community here is come mindful, come with respect, come with an open heart, come with an open mind and a willingness to learn and to be humble, I think you're going to get a lot more out of the experience, And so, there was a time when I think the party thing, and hey, I love partying, I love drinking, I love playing music, all that, that's all fine. But you've got to kind of keep yourself in check. And when you're in a destination, you want to be respectful of that space, right? So it's just, in a way, like I said, kind of common sense. But I think if we don't put that out there, we're doing everybody a disservice. So we can put it out there. This is what we're hoping from you,
Yeah.
and then try to put that on a plate for them and make it easy. And when I say that, make it easy by working with vendors and activity partners that are also mindful of their impact and where they're going and how many people we're taking there. There's some beautiful hikes out on Maui's North Shore, for example. And I learned many years ago that, 20, 30 people is a good number. I tried to take 100 something people out there many years ago, and just diminishes the experience. It bums out the locals. So that's just an example of, me learning as I've gone through my career, my decades long career, what's appropriate and what's not. And this might be a good moment to just interject that I do feel like the group business, is good business for Hawaii, because in a lot of ways, if my average group size is 200 to 300 people, 400 people, those are 200, 300, 400 people that aren't renting cars. They're coming in and being transferred in motor coaches. We're sending them on activities that are vetted with partners that are locally operated businesses that have permission to go on the lands they're going on and do the things they're doing, or have give back initiatives. So we really can procure the top kind of activities that we want to see done here in the islands. Whereas if these people were coming on their own, they might just be going willy-nilly and going with subpar providers, or going into areas they shouldn't be going, or going there with numbers they shouldn't be going to, And so I think with the group side, we're able to kind of curate the experience where it's powerful for the attendee, but it's not too extractive to the community. if that's a simple way to say that. So, and sometimes people think groups like, ooh, groups, but if those people were still going to come here on their own, I do feel like there's a validity to keeping them together, and again, the simple example of not all of them renting cars and being moved in large motor coaches. You get one or two vehicles instead of 50 or 60 vehicles on the road, so.
And I mean, I know that we're talking about things that you don't like seeing, but I have to interject a little bit as well, because it's like, we're not trying to tell people don't have fun, and I think that that's something that
Absolutely
comes up a
not.
lot.
In fact, we are the fun
please.
specialists.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just on a trip, actually a group trip, and it was funny because the people that I was with were people that do what I do. And we were talking about it, and we're like, you're not going to out fun us. Like, we're professional fun havers. Like, that is what we do,
Yes. That's awesome.
But
Yeah.
there's,
So,
being respectful, you can always go to the beach, go to the beach.
Of course.
As long as you're not going out swimming in big waves when you don't know how to swim, you're good.
Right.
Drink as much as you want at the beach. Have fun,
Yeah. And
take your
definitely,
trash with you, but
I laugh sometimes because we often get asked to do these team building events, and I always say at the end of those, when I'm just watching them, even as a coordinator that's helped put it together, at the end of the day, my smile muscles hurt because these people are having so much fun, and I'm looking at them let their hair down and do whatever it is, the relays, or participate in an outrigger canoe experience, or at the evening events, dancing away to one of the island's top party bands. And they're in their mode where they earned this moment, and they worked hard to be spoiled like they're getting spoiled by these organizations, companies. And they really are. A lot of the attendees at my events are type A personalities. They're very much extroverts. A lot of them, they're salespeople. They love being around people. So, you get them in a group together with music or team building or fun, and they're the funnest people around, right? So we definitely, I didn't intend to make it sound like, hey, come out here and we're going to keep you muzzled and you're not going to have fun. We just want that fun to be safe. We want it to be respectful, So we're all about bringing in wonderful entertainers, like dueling pianists, for example. And really, I work with occasionally with some friends of mine that own a company called Song Division. Some of you may have heard of, and they do rock and roll team building events where groups get together and write their own music, and with the concept of experiencing their corporate culture through the music. And there's lots of really great ways to have fun. Obviously, the standard ones here on Maui, the snorkel trips, the whale watches, the zip lining, the rainforest waterfall hikes, the ATV tours. The list is long and deep: kayak snorkeling, surfing lessons, outrigger canoe regattas and lessons. So stand-up paddleboarding. I mean, on and on and on. There's so much fun to be had here. Don't let me shy you away from coming to Hawaii, because we can get you going for sure.
Absolutely. And to continue on that, I know that you've talked about a bunch of different examples of things that you've seen that are really cool, and you just listed a whole bunch. But what is the most unique of those ideas that is the most fun? And I know that you're first thinking about dueling pianos, so it's okay. Like, I know you don't have to go there. It's fine.
Yeah.
But what is the most unique, fun thing that you've seen at an event that you're like, this was just really clever, this was really cool, it worked out really well, something just out of the box?
Right. Well, gosh, it's hard having a 34-year career and, operating 50 programs a year. Many of them are 5-night programs. So, it translates into thousands of events. Before I talk about one that I thought was cool, I want to tell you about one that's coming up. It's going to be the first time for us. I know it's nothing super, super new to the universe as a whole, to planet Earth here. There, people have been doing them now, but we're doing our first drone show for a client on May 15th in Wailea. And so we're really excited. The client, wanted to put together something really special. So I can't even speak from experience, but I've just seen them on TV at the Olympics and, various YouTube clips of coordinated drone shows. But they're going to have hundreds of drones up in the air, flying around in unification with different messaging and symbols and shapes and designs. So I'm really curious and excited to check that out. That's something more on the, I guess you would say, on the technological cutting edge of things. But um, I remember an event years ago where we sailed from Maui across the channel to Lanai with multiple privately chartered catamarans. Um, and that in itself is a great experience because you're whale watching. Oftentimes, dolphin are following you. You're out in the tropical waters sailing over to Lanai, but that's not, the end of it. So when we get onto shore, we're doing different Hawaiian cultural experience. So we'll break people into teams, and we've had them do blind Hawaiian food taste testing. So they could be eating lomi lomi salmon or poi or a certain type of vegetable or a serving dish that's of Hawaiian nature, and you have to look. You're blindfolded, so you have to just go on pure taste. And then we had like a cliff jumping competition, and it's the same. You've got different teams competing in all of this stuff, and then we participated in a number of Hawaiian games, and then they got to snorkel. They had a paddleboard race contest, so it kind of wrapped into itself all of these different experiences. It touched on Hawaiian culture, it touched on leisure, sailing. On the way back, it's open bar, and we're having Molokai mules instead of Moscow mules, and we're having ice cream sundaes and giving awards out to the winning teams. And everybody's they're relaxed, they're learning about the culture, they're on the water, they're seeing nature, and it's all kind of stitched together with all these different components where it feels seamless to the participant, right? So it's all that back of the house coordination that makes it really come off in a way that feels organic for the participants, and they just come home sunburnt and smiling, and that's a pretty fun one. I'd have to really, if I sat down and thought about it, it's like, well, what's the most unique evening event? What's the most unique team building event? What's the most unique maybe activity that we've curated? So there'd be different answers for all of that. But one of the things that we do as a DMC is we're always asked by our partners to give the guests an experience they may not be able to have if they were to come on their own. And we hear it time and time again. We want that wow factor. We want that moment where maybe this person has been to the Big Island before, and what are you going to show them that they didn't hear about or didn't know about? And so that we're always tasked with that. And I will say that one of the challenges here in Hawaii is because of the nature of our resources and being an island, there's not a lot of new venues being built. There's not a lot of new hotels being built. There's not a lot of new activities coming online. Occasionally you'll get something new, the honeybee tour, or, something kind of a little on the fringe that's newer, but it's hard to find new things. And that's what we're consistently tasked with is digging a little deeper and not just doing the most common knee-jerk things. Oh, I went to Hawaii and I went on a whale watch. I love whale watches. I will never not be excited to see a whale, but that's not new. And sometimes our clients have been here 3 or 4 or 5 times, and they're like, what else have you got? And that is a challenge here. I think more so even than the mainland, where we're kind of restricted by what people are allowed to do, how they're able to use the land. There's only so many slips in the harbor, meaning there's only so many boats that can come in the harbor. There's only so many venues that'll allow 200 or 300 or 400 people to be there legally. And I have to operate, above board. I don't have the luxury of doing a small event and winging it at somebody's private home in Kapalua that doesn't have legal permits to do events. I don't live in that world. I have to do things that are permitted and allowed. And a lot of times it's hard to find new venues. I mean, you get a group of 400 people on Maui, and there's a very small number of places you can legally take them at one time, so that's one of the challenges, and also one of the benefits of working with the DMC is we've got our ear to the ground and we're constantly looking for that new thing, so yeah.
I've heard that quite a bit with events and musicians and all that. When it's like, when there's something new, people are generally like, ooh, tell me about that. Because I've heard that groups come and they say, okay, well, we've seen the Hula show 4 times, we come every year. So it's, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just they want to do a different event because they do it every year,
Yeah.
Cool. So with all of those things in mind, and your history and the different things that you've done, what's your current availability? When someone's going to plan an event like this, how far out should they start thinking about doing it?
Well, that's a really good question. If anybody's looking to bring, I'd say, the longer the runway, the better, generally speaking. But I would say, about a year out is good. And I think that for anyone listening that's unfamiliar with bringing groups to the Hawaiian Islands, we do have a group season. People tend to think people coming to Hawaii a lot, I think, in the summer. Of course, we know about the snowbirds and people from Canada and the colder states that want to be in Hawaii in the winter. But for our high season for group business really tends to be kind of mid-January through the end of May. And then once we're in the summer in June, July, August, it tends to really be more about weddings, family trips, and not so much the corporate world. So you might find better rates on the shoulder season if you're a group. If you're looking to bring a group here, you want to bring them in February or March, you're probably going to be paying top dollar for those room rates and things like that. We do get the occasional person reaching out saying, "Hey, I got your name from the Four Seasons or whatnot, and I'm bringing 200 people. We'll be there in 60 days." And we kind of make a little face and think like, "Wow, that's really short-term planning for a group of that size." And maybe they should have thought about getting on it a little sooner. And there are availability issues here in Hawaii. When a boat sold out, it's sold out. When a zip line, if you can only zip line on March 15th, and that's the one day of your incentive program or your conference that you're allowed to do that, that's your free day, and all those zip line tours are booked up, you're out of luck, and then you kind of go into your second tier choice. So there is a great advantage in getting these holds down early, so you get to do what you want with the partners you want to be with, and not having to go to the second tier operators, things like that. So a year is great, 8 months is great, 6 months works. You start to get 4, 3, 2 months out, and it's not ideal. Long answer, sorry.
No, all good. So I know that we talked about kind of what got you into being around musicians and all of that kind of stuff, but what truly got you into the industry and what has kept you here for so many years?
Well, this is a bit of a fun personal story, but I lost my mom when I was really young, and my grandparents were helping me through college, so I was super grateful to them. And my grandmother had always said, as long as you're getting good grades and you're holding up your end of the bargain, we're going to support you through college, and then it's over, right? So I was doing an internship with the DMC in San Diego while I was attending University of San Diego, and I got to the end of the internship, and it was my last month of my senior year, and my grandmother sent a check helping me with rent, and in the memo section she wrote "the end." and I hit the panic button, and I realized that I was really truly on my own with no parents, and I'm 21 years old and staring down the rent and the car payment and the food and all the stuff. And where I was interning said, "Hey, you had done I was doing an internship with the DMC, as I mentioned, and they said, you'd done such a great job with this that we'd like to offer it. We've created a new position. We'd like to offer it to you." So it was really, really low pay, but it was like the moment where I went, well, I got to pay rent next month. So, and I had grown up being very social and being in the music business, and I was in a fraternity in college, and I loved events and partying. And I'm like, well, there's worse ways to make a living. And I had also realized while I was doing this in San Diego that it was a huge part of the tourism and hospitality industry here in Hawaii. Growing up, I had no idea what an incentive was. Wasn't thinking about conferences or meetings. I knew visitors came here. I knew it was as a top choice destination for vacations. I know nothing about incentive world. And so that internship really opened my eyes to, hey, this is my ticket home. This is how I'm going to get back to Hawaii. And I love the business. So, once I was in it for a couple of years, I transitioned to working for another DMC that was based on Oahu, but I ran the Maui office where I'm from here. And I did that for about 7 years. And then I had always kind of planted the seed in my head that I'd really like to steer my own ship and do this for myself. So after about 11 years total in the industry, I had the courage to jump out and start it on my own. And that was over 20 years ago. So I've had my own business now for 20 years, and I love it. I love the people I work with, and again, just sharing my love of Hawaii with the people that come here. It's been a real honor.
That's amazing. That is a crazy story. You started out with, I have a really funny story to tell you about how my mom died, and I was just
Yeah.
like, what?
Well, that part.
But it did get better. But
funny.
you just the first couple words out of your mouth, and I was just like,
Yeah, well,
Wow.
not to get too personal, but I think that part of the story was important because it was what I didn't have a safety net, and I think, my grandma writing those words, it was an important part of the story. So I didn't mean to start with the downer, but it is really, it was the motivation for me to just say, yep, you know what, I'm going to do this. And it's crazy, but 34 years later, here I am still doing it, still loving it, still learning. Yeah, it's been a good ride.
That's an amazing story about how, you were like, this is my ticket back to Hawaii. And I think that that's just such a common thing as people that have been here know that they want to be here. People that have that feeling. You're like, no, this is the place that, is where it's a big thing for people.
It is.
And I think it brings it full circle as well, talking about being a professional fun haver. and just getting to experience it, like you said, and getting to work with people, and what a better way to do that than to get to be in this kind of industry where it's like we literally get to go out with people and have fun, you know, and just be happy. It's amazing, and we live in an amazing place. So
well, DMC business in particular, and maybe the wedding industry as well, but it's really like a master class in hospitality because you've got to know a little bit about everything, as opposed to. And I take no thunder away from people that are, selling hotels or selling charters on boats. We need you, and we're happy you're there. When you're wearing that DMC hat, you have to know about the boats. You have to know about the hotels. You have to know about production, lighting, sound, audio, visual, logistics, transportation, team building, gifting. It's like insane. You have to know a little bit about all of those things, and you be real careful about who you work with. I like to joke that we're experts at bringing together the experts. So I'm not an AV expert, but I know the AV experts, and I know how to tell if they're good. You know what I mean? So it's like you really touch a lot of things. And I think that's the reason I've been able to stay in the industry so long, is I'm never bored. It's always different. It's on a different island with a different group size at a different resort and a different corporate culture of the clientele you're dealing with. And so there's very little repetitiveness to what we do, and it keeps it interesting and challenging at the same time. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, it's important. It's all about networking and knowing the people. I don't know it, but I know someone that does.
Yeah, right. I know a guy.
Always having an answer for those things. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was so great talking to you, and I honestly really want to talk to you again because this was a great interview. You're great at talking through all these things and have amazing stories. So I appreciate it. And,
well, thank you, Jake.
Go book your events.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to partnering again in some fashion, either on a podcast or watch the dueling fingers.
Exactly. There you go. Cool. Well, thank you. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.